done
Sure.
right. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I had the same vision. I think I saw that film. It was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And they took this, this kind of this gray area of this conversation that people have late at night. Why do we do what we do, and can we affect the world around us? And it all sounds really kind of uh, I don't know what you would call it, crystal hugging, and you'd never think that it would be a major film that could be a theatrical release, but they did really well with that film. That film went on to change a lot of people. And it was done with really cool editing, special effects. Have you seen that film? What the bleep do we know?
I've heard about it. It was released in my neck of the woods, but no, I have never seen it.
Well, check it out sometime because they whether you like the film or not, they did a good job. The way they interviewed people, the way they kind of cut the story with interviews and all that. So I saw that and I said somebody needs to do this type of film about UFOs, about what it's really all about, possibility of being visited, the possibility of this truth being covered up, and the things that we could learn from technology or these beings, and what it's really all about. I recently saw some guy trying to do something like that. The film is called, geez, his name. It's a film about sort of going where.
What the bleep the government knows?
Drive me crazy. This guy just did a film, and it's called the ET movement. It's about it'll come to me later, but a film was recently done using the stuff that Stephen Greer was talking about, the free energy, and why the real reason behind the UFO cover up. It's that there is a lot of energy, free energy that could be derived from technology. And I don't think he did get a theatrical release. It's on the internet. I'll come up with the name in a little bit. But yeah,
Is
so
this a film that is this a film they're working on Cirrus?
no, it's I've heard of that. Sirius or Cirrus.
Yeah. Well, there's another thing that was done by a guy, the Procter and Gamble guy,
Is
and it
that
was called. Yeah,
20?
it came out like a year or so ago. Called Wave. God, I'll think of it in a second. It'll come to me. My subconscious is going to work on it.
Okay, wait. Let's
Thrive. Thrive.
Thrive, the Thrive movement. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Thrive.
So I saw this and I said, well, finally somebody's moving in that direction. Yeah, Thrive. Uh, it was an interest attempt. Do you know anything about that film, or
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you
They
know?
featured some of my film clips in there.
I recognize some of it. Probably the astronaut stuff.
Yes.
Ah, those were big interviews that changed my life. By the way, you did those.
Yeah. Gosh. Thank you.
We'll talk about that in a bit. Actually, let's just finish up on Thrive and your film that you want to put out now. So, how will your film be different from films like Thrive or similar? What do you want to do if you can disclose?
I'd like to do a version of I Know What I Saw,
Hmm.
um, but with higher production value
Okay.
and slightly more international, and having a budget that would at least increase the odds of. I'm one of these people that's absolutely convinced with a proper budget that I could get uh, official evidence released in different countries. And I say that because I've met with some of these officials and I know it's there. And if you've got the money to pay for it, I have a funny feeling that it's going to be accessible. So I would like to raise the fund. I would like to raise a good portion of money. For instance, when I was in Virginia, I was only there for a week. Well,
Hmm.
Virginia and the surrounding areas. I mean, I was making unbelievable connections really quickly, in a matter of a day or two. I was going downtown Virginia and just talking to locals, going to local bars, going to local cafes, and just asking questions. And it was amazing how much we accomplished in a very short period of time. and I was having conversations with a general, with an active general, off the record, making inquiries, and I know this stuff's there, and I think money would get access to it.
And then you think you might have a film, if you could get the funding, that would deliver evidence that would persuade a lot of people.
Well, if you think of it this way, think of the real life close encounters. Okay, think of something with a we got a script writer on board, which I already have one lined up, a really well known script writer.
Okay.
That could you take some of the best cases, some of the best evidence from around the world, best locations, the best testimony, and couple that with a really good script and a really good production value. You'd have a hit. You'd have literally the real life close encounters. Spielberg.
I love it. I'm there. I'll buy my ticket right now.
You know what I'm saying? So,
see it.
And one can often imagine, like, all right, well, what's the buzz? How does this film referred to as? And people going, no, it's Close Encounters. Close Encounters was a phenomenon. I mean, it was hugely successful.
Yes.
E.T., Close Encounters, X-Files, that sort of thing. Well, this would be the real-life version of those.
That would be huge, and I have a feeling you would have a hit, and you would change a lot of things if that could really happen. So I go for it. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. The only thing holding you back is the reality of funding and money.
Well, that's never held me back before, so I don't anticipate it holding me back this time.
That's
there's money out there, believe me.
Well, great. You'll have to tell me someday how to get that money. I would like to know. I'm not getting a whole lot of money right now, but yes.
Well, it doesn't involve a fast car and a ski mask, if that's what you're implying.
Well, good. Yeah, that's what I was.
Although I am a good driver.
Right.
Do you know that I'm a trained race car driver?
I did not. No, how did that happen?
My dad sent me to. My dad was a writer for Car and Driver magazine. It was kind of his bread and butter. And when he lost his legs to multiple sclerosis, he had me driving. So I was driving all these fancy cars, and my father finally, he said, "You drive too fast." He wasn't going to slow me down, so he finally sent me to racing school, and he paid for it by writing an article about the racing school. And they did it in exchange. They allowed me the course for free.
Wow! Fantastic. Wow. So if I
need to get,
I did need what was the guy's name? The trainer?
Oh, it's called the Bob Bondurant Driving School.
See, so if I needed a getaway driver, you're the man.
You could say that.
That would be awesome. Fantastic.
I had the FBI following me one time. Something not to do with UFOs. Although I should have given them what they wanted in exchange for UFOs. But I was working at a hotel called Casa Madrona in Sausalito, California, which is just north of San Francisco. And I checked in unknowingly an international fugitive wanted by Interpol and the FBI. And then he befriended me. It's a long story, and I won't bore your listeners with the details, but long story short, the FBI was following me around for a week because they were trying to get to this guy that I'd checked in. And they said, "Oh, don't worry, you won't even know we're there." And so, of course, I'd see them following me everywhere I went in my car. So one time I was on the freeway, I thought, let's see if these guys can keep up with me. I completely wasted them.
That is awesome.
And the next day they come into my place of work and they were screaming at me, "Damn, you outrun us. What are you doing?" I said, "Well, you told me I wouldn't even know you were there."
I totally forgot you were there. I totally forgot. Sorry.
It was really funny.
By the way, what kind of car were you driving? What car were you driving?
I was driving a 325i BMW. It wasn't that fast, but it was fast enough. Six-cylinder, 186 horsepower,
Still a very cool scene in my mind. You shaking the FBI in your BMW. Very cool. We'll be coming up on a commercial break soon. It sounds fun. We have to hang out more, my friend. I know you're in California now. I will be getting back there soon when I'm done with my little film project in Europe here. One thing that I'd like just to put out there here is that you you do this because you feel UFOs are real. A lot of people have doubts about that. To you, are UFOs real? Is this a
Yes.
real?
Well, it, here's what I say to people.
Yes.
I'm asked the question all the time. Why do I give a bleep? Okay.
Yes. There you
My
go.
response to that, yeah, why give a bleep? My
Oh, what?
response to that is, hey, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you to suspend judgment, okay, with me for a moment. And hypothetically, imagine UFOs were real. Earth was being visited. Of course, when I say UFOs, I know technically UFOs is an unidentified flying object. Could be anything. Could be a bird. Could be a golf ball. Could be a flying saucer with aliens at the helm. Who knows? Point being is, I'm referring to a UFO loosely, like UFO loosely, that after exhaustive investigation, it still remains unidentified under intelligence control. Blah blah. Point being is, I'm making a sweeping statement that UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin. If they were real, how significant of a discovery would you give that? People go, well, God, that'd be a 10. That'd be the most significant discovery of our time. I said, well, I'm convinced it's happening. So it's not an easy story for me just to walk away from. I've had the backroom discussions with high-ranking military government officials from Tehran, from Russia and France and England and South America that have told me these things are real. We're being visited. That's not an easy story just to walk away from. I feel like every man, woman, and child, regardless of race, religion, or political affiliation, has a right to know about that.
Okay. You're absolutely right. If high government officials are telling you in that their best opinion, their best judgment, and from their evidence that UFOs are real and we are being visited by extraterrestrials, I would say that's a pretty big story.
I would say it's a pretty big story, and I don't know if we're on our commercial break right now or not, but
No, we're going into a commercial break, but
it's very, very, very comfortable to say that there are structured craft of unknown origin whizzing around with impunity in our airspace, and that on the multiple occasions that we've scrambled our fastest jets to intercept these things, we have been an absolute joke. Just a joke trying to even get near these things. These military guys have told me that had they blinked, they would have assumed that the object just disappeared in place. That's how fast they are. No wings, no visible means of propulsion, no right-angle turns at high speed, going from a standstill to out of sight in the blink of an eye without any air disturbance, without any sonic boom, and without any, as I said earlier, visible means of propulsion. We don't have that technology. We just don't.
No, we don't. And because if we do think about the size of the universe and how old other stars are compared to ours, we would have to accept that whoever these pilots are, they may be from a civilization that is millions, maybe even billions of years beyond us. And we'd be silly to think that we could have some kind of craft that would be able to do that. Since we only invented the airplane about 100 years ago, we have to imagine a civilization that invented the airplane, 10 million years ago or more, and what they've got now. So, yes, this is big stuff that we're talking about tonight, everyone. We're talking with James Fox here on Inception Radio Network. On Epic Voyages Radio, and we've got more about the reality of UFOs from a guy who's talking to very serious people on the topic, director, producer James Fox. Let's take a commercial break. Everybody get a cup of coffee, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Inception Radio Network and Epic Voyagers Radio. We're having a fantastic conversation tonight with James Fox. James, welcome back from the break.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, and I understand, I know you can't talk about it, but you are right now at a powwow of amazing UFO people. And you can't tell me what it's all about, I know, but would you be able to tell me who is there? Is there anything you can tell?
Well, it was going to be held It was going to be held about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it got postponed because of Hurricane Sandy. And so the list of people that I have or had, I don't know how many of which are going to be here and they're all gathered downstairs at a catered event. They're all eating and drinking and being jovial.
And I've got you locked in your room alone talking to me. I feel terrible.
Oh no, are you kidding me? I don't mind. That's fine. I just.
Well, you make me feel very, very cool that you're spending a little time with me and us. Thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah, no problem.
Well, this is a very important conversation. People want to know this. Share what you can. UFOs seem to be exploding right now in terms of popularity. They're not actually exploding in the sky. I mean, they're very popular right now. I've been actually
they're not pulling a Roswell,
huh? So not doing a Roswell or a Virginia. But
Virginia.
They are exploding in popularity, so much so that I was actually called by a production company and said, "Would you like to do another UFO show? We're trying to throw something together." And I thought, wow, thank you. I was really flattered that they contacted me, and a lot of people are into it. It seems like something has really opened up. Now, you've been doing this for a while. You were doing it when people still thought UFOs were crazy talk. You probably had
My own dad did.
Yes. And then, did you change his mind?
I didn't change his mind, but I brought him with me to an interview with Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper in 1998.
Wow.
And can you believe that? I can't believe I was doing this stuff back in 1995, 96, 97. I mean, it's just crazy.
That's how amazing you are. So you actually lined up an interview with astronaut, American hero, Gordon Cooper, and you brought your dad along.
Yeah, I did, because it was in Los Angeles, and I figured, my dad, he was an iconic figure of my father's generation. This man orbited the planet 22 times in a little tin can all by himself. He was the last American astronaut to go up in space alone. And, like I said, he was an iconic figure of my dad's generation. I mean, I don't know what would be the equivalent today, but, my dad really respected the guy.
Was he called the Cooper?
Well, Cooper was in the film. I don't know if any of your listeners out there would remember who's into space, the space program, flying, would remember The Right Stuff, even though it was years and years ago. But it's a great film for those, aviation enthusiasts and test pilots and the kind of, pushing the envelope kind of thing. And it was the birth of the space age, and it was documents the Chuck Yeagers and he's featured in there as one of the last American astronauts, part of the Mercury program to go up in space. Could you imagine, sitting in that little tin can and orbiting the planet 22 times all by yourself back then? I mean, they were like, well, you may make it back and you might not, but good luck to you.
Yeah, that's guts.
Those guys had balls of steel.
Yes, they did. Or they were crazy. And there's a fine line between the two, I guess. Very fine. Totally nuts.
Well, I mean, I can't believe that we just lost Neil Armstrong. It's like what really gets me. Oh, God. You think I have gotten to a number of witnesses before they've died. I got to Lord Hill Norton, and I got an interview with Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper, and I have to go in and look at Out of the Blue, but there are a number of people in Out of the Blue. I got to Gerald Ford. And there are a number of others in Out of the Blue that are no longer, unfortunately, with us. Mm-hmm. But there are opportunities that were missed. Like I, for instance, was really good friends with Buzz Aldrin's sister, Fay Ann Potter. Mm. And Fay Ann had talked about Buzz's encounter on the way to the moon. And, of course, Buzz was with Neil Armstrong on the very famous Apollo 11. Well, I never really quite got the story, and my intention was to, at the very least, get Buzz Aldrin's sister to talk about the whole thing that he shared with her back in the late 60s, early 70s about their encounter on the way to the moon. And, she died. She called me a couple times in the last couple months, and then I found out that she passed, and I never got her on camera. And I really kicked myself. I really kicked myself for that. And there's a colonel in Los Angeles right now. And then, of course, I always wanted to get access to Neil Armstrong, and you think, it'll happen one of these days. treat like every day like there won't be a tomorrow, and that's the way you have to do it. And unfortunately, I've missed a few golden opportunities. And there's a colonel in L.A. right now who is part of Project Blue Book, and he's prepared to admit on camera, this is a guy that investigated UFOs on an official level for the United States Air Force. He's in his 90s, but he's like, flying saucers are real, and they have been. His only question is, who's piloting these damn things? That's a very bold statement for someone in his position.
Sure.
But I want to get this guy on camera. But
so the clock is ticking. Time is ticking. There are people that could be very valuable to what you're trying to do, and that they're getting up there. Some of them are.
It's like Gerald Ford, for instance. I'll give you an example. We're doing this whole thing on the Condon report. Well, the Condon committee, I don't know if any of your listeners are aware of it. Well, we actually had congressional hearings back in the 60s, 66 and 68.
Condon report.
Well, the Condon report was basically, we had that incredible sighting over the state of Michigan in 1966, and there were a lot of witnesses, and the Air Force begrudgingly pushed Dr. Jalen Hynek, who was the scientific advisor to Project Blue Book, in front of a very large audience, the media included, to give an explanation, a terrestrial explanation for what people had been seeing. And Dr. Jalen Hynek said, well, you have swamp gas here, and the illusion of movement is because a little bit will appear over here, and then that extinguishes itself, and then more will appear over here, and gives the impression of movement. And he was absolutely ridiculed for that, and it really put the Air Force in a terrible light. And as a result of that, Gerald Ford, who's congressman at the time of Michigan, said, this is absolutely the most silly explanation I've ever heard, and he pushed for congressional hearings, and they had him. And I guess they heard testimony from both the Air Force and other people, and members of Congress basically figured that the Air Force was full of doggy doo-doo. So they'll hire an outside panel of scientists, very prominent scientists, and have them review some good UFO cases and determine whether or not these things are real or not. It was the closest we ever came to disclosure. But long story short, and I'm probably putting everyone to sleep out there, but
not at all, my friend.
Congressman Gerald Ford was instrumental in making that happen. It's part of history. And I had what a lot of people refer to as a snowball's chance in hell, but thank God I did. I contacted Gerald Ford. I actually was in touch with his secretary, Penny Circle, for quite some time. And out of the blue, Gerald Ford contacts me, and I'll never forget it. It was in the late 90s, and I get this phone call.
Oh, my gosh.
I swear to God, I swear on my dad's grave. I just buried my dad a few months ago. This is honest to God truth. I get a call from Penny Circle, President Ford's secretary, and she says, Mr. Fox? I said, yes. The president is ready to speak with you. I said, what? I was like, you got to be kidding me. She's like, no, he's ready to talk to you.
And did she know this was regarding UFOs? Did he know why he was getting back to you?
Hell yeah, he did.
Wow.
Yes, he did. Yep.
So this is a former president.
I wanted to know about the congressional hearings. I wanted to know about the sighting in '66 when he was congressman. I wanted to know.
Okay.
And he said, look, well, once again, I'm having to give you guys the truncated version because I don't want to, bore you with all these details. But bottom line is that he said, look, do not ask me anything further. What I will confirm with you is that I pushed for congressional hearings. I wrote that letter to the secretaries, Mendel Rivers, I believe it was, and he was an advocate for transparency on the subject, and he pushed for the congressional hearings. He's like, that is what I'll do. I'll talk about. Okay. So I said, hey, you know what? I'll take what I can get. Great. So I get a couple of statements from him on the phone, and then I said something like, I figured I had nothing to lose. I already got what I wanted, right? So I said something like, well, what do you think about the sightings over Michigan? Or what about, this other stuff with UFOs? And he said, I'm not prepared to talk about anything further. Very presidential. I was like, okay, Mr. President, I really appreciate that, But what do you say to a president, right? Okay, Mr. President.
That's right. But
hey, it's a little something. It's not huge, but it's a little something, And
that is
for
huge.
the record.
Just the fact that the guy returned your call regarding
Yeah,
UFOs and in his
swear to God.
activity involved with it. Uh, that is huge. You have a knack for pulling in heavy hitters. Before your documentaries, there was a lot of weak stuff out there. It really was, the stereotypical farmer in the field saying, "Yep, I saw something up there. I don't know what it was." And then suddenly you come out, boom, with some pretty heavy hitter films. One that changed my view and really got me intrigued about UFOs was Out of the Blue. This is still, in my opinion, one of the best documentaries out there. And if any of you out there listening haven't seen it, I recommend that you
It's on
check it.
YouTube and it's on YouTube and Netflix right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then, of course, you went on to do something even heavier, uh, which is more of a disclosure film involving a lot of former military and FAA official and people like that. And this is I Know What I Saw. So you talk to people like presidents. You talk to Gerald Ford, and let's quickly go back. We were talking about Gordon Cooper and your dad. You say you this was the interview that actually persuaded one of the biggest skeptics that in
Oh
your
yeah,
inside circle. Your dad. Your dad was like,
my
James,
father.
my son is a UFO nut.
Yeah, no, my father literally, he's a mainstream journalist. He wrote from everything from Car and Driver, Playboy, Sports Illustrated, Rolling Stone, and he helped bring acupuncture to the United States in the very early 70s by
Hmm.
writing a major article for it in Playboy magazine.
Hmm.
And, he was having members of the family, writing me letters saying, please reconsider what the path you're taking. It's a dead-end road. There's nothing to it. You're wasting your life. I mean, literally. And I
Oh,
remember
spirit.
thinking, like my whole family, except for my mother. My mother,
I
for
know the
bless her
feeling,
heart.
my friend. I know the feeling.
Yeah,
So,
and yeah, yeah. So I just remember thinking, the bleep with all y'all, I'm gonna do this with or without your support. And so I did. And I think the skepticism and if this is the word incredulity, the incredulous looks on my close friends and family's faces almost sort of like propelled me more and drove me harder to
uh-huh.
prove them wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean because you knew you were right. You felt so strongly that you were right. Obviously, you
Yeah.
were
Well,
held by
so
something.
so
By something.
so I did my first piece, which I sold to the Discovery Channel, called 50 Years of Denial.
I,
UFO's 50 Years of Denial. I don't know. Have you heard of it?
yeah, that was the first one that I saw. Actually, I watched that before, Out of the Blue. I
Yeah.
actually didn't know that was you. I just got it from some local. I don't remember if I got it off the internet or probably off the internet. Sure, I didn't even know it
Yeah.
was you until later.
You cheap bastard.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
bought
kidding.
it. I
You
bought
know,
it from. Was it?
I'm totally kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. People say to me all the time, like, yeah, I watched it. I was like, you know what? I'm really happy for. I'd rather have my work out there and not make any money at all, and having people see it than, be like hoarding all of it for the money only. And I'm not. I've never. This has never been a passion for money. This has been something I
I
felt.
paid for it. I paid for it. It's not
No,
like
no, it's okay, and it's people like you, Pat. No, I was kidding. I'm totally kidding.
but I am a
No,
cheap ass. Seriously.
you stingy bastard. No.
Yeah, that was a great one. Okay.
No. So anyway, so I finished 50 Years of Denial, and then I got invited to go to Russia, which was a total coup. In actuality, what happened was there was a guy in Russia, Valery Uvarov. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but I think it is. And he basically wanted to distribute my film in Russia.
Okay.
And the money thing was weird. I can't remember exactly. There was something odd. And then they finally said, look, I'll tell you what. We'll get you interviews with active military personnel and a cosmonaut. Cosmonaut's just a Russian version of an astronaut.
Sure.
And in exchange, you give us broadcast rights to 50 Years of Denial.
Oh
And my
boy.
friends that I was living with at the time were like, oh, well, it's kind of funny. You sign the rights over, you send them the master tapes, and God, we don't know if they're going to deliver. I said, well, let's take a chance. What the heck? What do I got to lose? So
Trust.
Yeah, so I did. I took a chance and I sent them all the tapes and I sent them the masters and lo and behold, I think it took like 9 months to negotiate, but I did get invited to Russia and I did go to Star City and I did get to meet with active military. It was amazing.
Yeah, I
Oh,
saw some of it
Pavel
in
Popovich.
yes.
Pavel Popovich. Sorry. Yeah, Pavel Popovich. He's dead now. I got to him too. He's an out of the blue. He's a
It's interesting.
cosmonaut.
You visit these people and then they die. What? I'm seeing a trend here.
I'm
I don't
coming to
know.
your house next, Pat.
Wait, my friend. That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. Yes, very important people are passing, and it's important that you get them. A lot of them contact you and want to talk before their
Well, look,
time runs out.
I'm not sitting there saying that I'm breaking ground. There are so many researchers out there that are so much more qualified and done amazing things. But the fact that I've got them on camera is what I'm happy about. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and it's important that you do because that's how people believe. It's one thing
Yes.
to read about it in the
One
paper,
thing to
but
read it out of a book. It's another thing
sure.
to see it come out of their mouth.
See
Exactly.
it come out of their mouth. And going back to this Gordon Cooper interview, it was a big deal. Like I sat there watching it. It's Gordon Cooper, and he's talking almost very seriously and almost angry. There's a point where he kind of snaps at you a little bit in the interview.
Yep.
I think you say something like, "Couldn't you have
Followed up on that film footage.
followed up on that?" And he says something like, "Well, who are you going to tell? Who are you going to
Yep.
tell?" Uh, because they were, I believe some government people came and took the evidence from him after he had, I think he had
He
acquired
handed
some
it over, and it was put
film.
on a jet and sent to Washington.
Maybe you can tell
That's
that
the
story right
order.
now. For people who
Yeah,
don't know
sure.
this interview, the famous Gordon Cooper interview that James Fox did with him about UFOs and his knowledge of UFOs.
So
How
Gordon
tell?
Cooper was now the only thing I'm unclear of is the exact date, but it's circa